Alright, we're on the Creepypasta Wiki. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Nicholascooney, reading another ancient creepypasta. Last time I read The Puppet by K.I. Simpson. Today I'm reading The Russian Sleep Experiment, which is by... Is there a... Original author unknown. Oh, thank God, I don't have to credit anybody. This video is overdue. It's been way too long since the last one. The video series is going to be called Spooky Stuff now because I don't need to associate it with any other things because there's just no point. It was just me being kind of niggly. Alright, so this is another one of the ones like Unknown Format, where the first time I heard it read, it was by Myuu back when he used to do haunted gaming and creepypasta readings. I really enjoyed that, and I'm no longer subscribed to Myuu because I just don't think him being wacky and laughing all the time and being a meme is as appealing as the way he was before. Like, I like the creepypasta shit a lot, and it's a damn shame he got rid of all that, just purged it. Luckily, people have archived it, but still, goddamn. Okay, I've put this off long enough. It's not even that long of a story. Here we go. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based stimulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they had only microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows into the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water and toilet, and enough food to last all 5 for over a month. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained, having been promised, falsely, that they would be freed if they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were, and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They stopped talking to each other and began alternately whispering to the microphones and one-way mirrored portholes. Oddly, they all seemed to think they could win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity, with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself. After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The 2 non-screaming captives took the books apart, smeared page after page with their own
doodle feces,
and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. Also, man, I shouldn't have chose 4 a.m. to read this. I'm having to take many takes for everything as the words are starting to blend. Whatever, that's what I get for choosing right now. I've literally had all these other days to do it, but instead I was doing VCs in Discord with my friends and stuff. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working, since they thought it impossible that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very heavy level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they said they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives they were afraid were either dead or vegetables. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom. To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response. We no longer want to be freed. Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces during the research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. Yeah, alright, so here we go again, you guys. I'm gonna color that in. There we go, look at this sentence. Fuck this sentence. Sometimes creepypastas have this shit where it feels like they were translated from a different language because they are missing words. Or that one time when there was an extra word that made it a double negative in the puppet when I read that. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subject's thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain and allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was actually blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hand, not with teeth as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all of them, were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects had been removed. While the heart, lungs, and diaphragm remained in place, the skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribs had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the rib cage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the eviscerated but still living bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight. Alright, this is the part where the story, honestly, for me, I'm gonna say it. I know I'm trying to read it consistently, but I like reading these to comment on the stories. I do like this story, but this is the part where it's like, okay, buddy, this is a little gay. I know that we know that these aren't real. These are just supposed to be the campfire stories, but this is the part where it's like, okay, man, the fuck are you talking about? You're really gonna tell me that these things are this freaky and weak, and they're just gonna be able to fight fucking Russian men in their prime? Like, you really think I'm gonna believe that shit? I'm sorry, that's the part where it's like my suspension of disbelief kind of runs out. Everything else I was cool with.
The doo-doo feces.
The ripping off of flesh to put in the drain and stuff. But this part, it's like, okay. So if they haven't really been eating properly, and some of them are all open and exposed, but you expect me to believe that, oh yeah, the Russians wouldn't just the Russian soldiers that aren't all fucked up like this wouldn't kick their asses? I'm sorry. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped out. Absolute bullshit, like I was saying. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off. Okay, haha, look at that, he lost his balls, haha. Haha, we get a reference to the male genitalia, haha. Isn't that funny? Dark humor, right? And an artery in his leg severed by one of the subject's teeth. Even though we just established earlier they weren't using their teeth, they were using their fingers, that's why they had bone exposed. But, I mean, contradict yourself, okay. Another 5 of the soldiers lost their lives if you count the ones that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident. Okay, see, if they were able to restrain them and just being this close to freaks is what caused their deaths, like just them wanting to commit suicide in post, as opposed to some of them actually dying in this struggle, that I think that would actually be better. But whatever. Like I said, this is the part where it's just horseshit. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured and he bled out almost immediately. Medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with more than 10 times the human dose of a morphine derivative and still fought like a cornered animal, breaking the ribs and arm of one doctor. Bullshit. When his heart... Yeah, see again, missing words. Missing words. So I'll just add his. When his heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out to the point there was more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and flail for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in reach, and just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally fell silent. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas demanded to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for the surgery. He fought fiercely against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch wide leather strap on one wrist, even through the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. Again, this is horseshit. That part, I'm sorry, they would fold, okay? I don't believe that these fucking Giga Chad Soviet soldiers would lose to these weird, basically crackhead zombies. I'm sorry, that's not the way it works. It took only a little more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and the instant his eyelids fluttered and closed, his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the normal level of oxygen. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in his struggle to not be subdued. Most of them were from the force his own muscles had exerted on them. Okay, so there are YouTube videos like Doctor Reacts to Mortal Kombat Fatalities, or Doctor Reacts to surgeries in movies and shit like that. And there are obviously YouTubers for everybody, so there are Russians that have used YouTube. I need to see actual Russians comment on what they think of this. Especially ones that are old enough to have known about like the Soviet time period, and actual doctors. I need to hear what doctors think about this shit, because this is the weakest part of the story. The part where it's like, oh, all of a sudden these guys that are missing a bunch of parts and are malnourished are badasses who can kick the ass of soldiers. Second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords destroyed, he was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought near him. He shook his head yes when someone suggested reluctantly they try the surgery without anesthetic, and did not react for the entire 6-hour procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon presiding stated repeatedly that it should be medically possible for the patient to still be alive. I think they meant impossible. Again, this is just their writing. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, see, that part is actually good. That's actually good spookies, okay? When the surgery ended and the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something of drastic importance, the surgeon had a pen and pad fetched so the patient could write his message. It was simple. Keep cutting. The other 2 test subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic as well, although they had to be injected with a paralytic for the duration of the operation. The surgeon found it impossible to perform the operation while the patients laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subject could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abnormally short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. Ugh! The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped out their own guts, and why they wanted to be given the gas again. Only one response was given. Let's remain awake. See, that part is good. I liked them being these ghoulies that are just trying to do the thing that they were like. These are monsters that the experiment created, basically, by trying to keep them awake so long. Albeit malnourished monsters missing body parts and stuff. And self-inflicted wounds. All 3 subjects' restraints were reinforced, and they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting determination as to what should be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goals of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitor and had their restraints padded for long-time confinement. To everyone's surprise, all 3 stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious that at this point, all 3 were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects, because there's no "the" there, to add it for you guys, that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might, first left, then right, then left again, for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brainwaves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he were repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. As they focused on paper scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time, as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brainwaves showed the same flat lines as one who had just... God damn it. Again, whoever wrote this... Maybe, you know what? Sometimes when I write things, I miss out words because I think I already typed them. I'm going to give this unknown author the benefit of the doubt and assume that this isn't a mistranslation of a work that wasn't in English. It was actually, he wrote it in English and he just missed some words that he thought he already wrote out. Alright, I'll give him that. Because, I mean, like I said, it's happened to me. I've missed words when I've been typing out things and I have to go back and fix it, realizing I didn't do a word that I swear I wrote down. I think it's even happens to me back when I was in school, and sometimes I have to write like a paper. I'll stop being prissy about it when I realized now that that's probably the case, is that he thought he wrote the words and he didn't.
Why are you assuming it's a man that wrote this? How do you know it wasn't a woman? How do you know they follow the...
Shut the fuck up. Anybody that's possibly gonna think... No one's gonna comment that. No one comments on these videos. But if you do, whatever. You know a dude wrote this, who just died from falling asleep. The commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. Oh, did he survive? Because somehow these guys are fucking, like, supernatural or something, because they're able to fight fucking, like, prime of their life Russian soldiers from, like, the Cold War or whatever. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to the bed, as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. I won't be locked in here with these things. Not with you. He screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten so easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out. So nearly free. The original author is unknown, like I stated earlier. Alright, everybody, so that's one that I remember also, one of the old ones. Again, I'm just going to be covering all the old ones and eventually maybe cover newer creepypastas. I just want to cover all the ones that I remember enjoying hearing in high school. being read by the likes of people like Mudahar or Mr. Nightmare, Mr. Creepypasta, stuff like that. My biggest gripe with this story, as you heard, was the part that I couldn't believe, where these fucking malnourished fucking goons were somehow able to, like, kill Russian soldiers. If they had established that these guys that were enemies of the state were not just... because they said they were political prisoners or whatever. They didn't say that they were former soldiers as well. And this was that they were some kind of traitors that had, like, experience fighting or something. I don't buy that after missing a bunch of body parts and being all crack mode and not eating for that many days, that somehow they were able to be strong enough to rip off balls. You know? In fact, being exposed to their own
doo-doo feces
should have made their eyes all fucked up too.
Human feces
will do that to you. Fuck it. Thanks for listening. Happy Halloween. I'm gonna post this before Halloween, hopefully. And maybe I'll, like, squeeze one or two more in this month, October. I mean, I'm gonna keep doing this even when it's not October, but I'll try to get more Halloween content out. Alright, good night. Well, or good morning, because it's 4:30 now, a.m.